The terrifying prophecy of 2020. 5 from a future human. Unsolved Mysteries. What if someone told you they had seen the future, and it was nothing like we imagined? In 2011, a cryptic message appeared on a quiet online forum, posted by someone claiming to be a human from the year 2060. Their words didn't scream for attention, but they whispered truths that would unfold one by one in our world. Natural disasters, global shifts, and technological breakthroughs, each prediction matched events that came to pass. Yet, one final prophecy remains unfulfilled, and it's about 2025. This isn't just a science fiction tale. It touches our fears about the unknown, our fragile dependence on technology, and the crossroads humanity now faces. So what is this warning from the future? And how close are we to the moment it all begins? Let's explore this chilling mystery, right here on the Journey of Wisdom. And if this story stirs something in you, don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps us continue our path of seeking truth and wisdom in the modern world. Number 1. First appearance of the man from 2062. On a quiet November day in 2010, while most internet users in Japan were casually scrolling through their usual discussions about anime, politics, or everyday life, something unusual broke through the digital noise. A strange and chilling message posted anonymously on the popular forum 2channel. The post began with a sentence that would seem laughable at first glance. "I come from the year 2062. It sounded like science fiction, a line straight out of a movie script or online folklore. But this person wasn't seeking attention for entertainment. He claimed to be on a mission not of curiosity or research, but one carrying consequences that could mean life or death for the world as we know it. What made the post stand out, however, wasn't just the dramatic claim of being a time traveler. It was the unsettling sense of urgency in the final message. Alongside a strange mix of Japanese characters and phonetic spellings, like a code or cipher, he left a line that would later haunt thousands. "This is advice for modern humanity." Most people ignored it at the time, dismissing it as a hoax or part of an elaborate internet game. Just another fictional tale among the many that populated forums back then. Still, there were a few who didn't let it go. They saw something off in the symbols, something deliberate. With curiosity bordering on obsession, they began breaking down the strange script, comparing it against linguistic patterns and known ciphers. When the first rough translations surfaced, what emerged wasn't a convoluted riddle or a futuristic proverb. It was a chillingly simple command: run to the mountains. Without context, it sounded random, even absurd. But sometimes the meaning of a message only becomes clear when the world changes around it, and that shift came just 4 months later. On March 11th, 2011, at exactly 2:46 p.m., Japan was struck by a magnitude 9.0 earthquake that violently shook the Tohoku region. The quake alone would have been catastrophic, but what followed was even more devastating. A tsunami, towering over 40 meters, roared in from the sea, crashing into towns, wiping out entire communities, and leaving behind a trail of heartbreak and horror. Over 20,000 people were dead or missing. Homes, lives, and futures were swept away in mere moments. And suddenly, people remembered that phrase, "Run to the mountains." What had once been ridiculed now felt like a prophecy missed. The alignment between the cryptic warning and the location of the disaster sent chills down the spine of anyone who recalled that old internet thread. It wasn't just coincidence that made this moment unforgettable. It was the raw reminder that sometimes warnings come not in thunder or headlines, but in whispers lost in the chaos of modern life. And as we look at this story now, years later, it's not just a tale about a supposed time traveler. It's a reflection on how often we ignore signals because they don't fit our expectation. In today's world, flooded with noise, falsehoods, and distractions, our ability to discern meaning is more critical than ever. Whether or not the man from 2062 was real isn't the most important question. What matters more is how we respond to unexpected wisdom, to warnings we don't yet understand, and to the quiet voices that ask us to think twice before dismissing what doesn't seem possible. In modern life, we are constantly surrounded by messages, some urgent, some trivial, and often it is difficult to tell which ones truly matter until it's too late. Let this story be a gentle reminder to listen deeply, not only with our ears, but with our intuition. Sometimes, preparing for uncertainty doesn't mean living in fear, it means living in awareness. Just like Run to the Mountains only made sense in hindsight, the choices we make today, the voices we ignore or the wisdom we overlook, may shape how we experience tomorrow. And perhaps, amid the chaos of predictions and information overload, the quietest truths are the ones that deserve the most attention. Number 2. The next returns of 2062. Let's go back to the year 2011, a time when many in Japan were still trying to recover, physically and emotionally, from the shocking events of the Tohoku earthquake and tsunami. By then, the mysterious figure known only as the man from 2062 had already made a name for himself, not through fame or media appearances, but through a haunting internet post that warned humanity to run to the mountains, a message that eerily preceded one of the most devastating disasters in the country's modern history. Naturally, when this same anonymous figure returned in July of 2011, the atmosphere was different. He was no longer just some internet myth or quirky forum poster. People began taking him seriously. The tone of the conversation had shifted. Mockery turned into curiosity, and curiosity into concern. When he reappeared, the questions poured in. How did you know? Is something worse coming? What should we do to prepare? But instead of offering clarity, 2062 chose silence. He answered very little, offered no comfort, and before disappearing again, left behind only one cryptic note. He would return again in April of 2016, during a time he described as significant. He warned not with details, but with something far more unsettling. An emotional nudge, urging people to prepare themselves mentally for what lay ahead. What would you have done with such a vague warning? Would you have dismissed it, or would you have started watching the calendar more closely? Now let's move forward to April 14th, 2016. Without warning, a powerful earthquake struck Kumamoto in southern Japan, injuring hundreds and destroying homes, roads, and buildings. The nation once again found itself thrown into chaos, struggling to make sense of yet another natural disaster. And just as hearts were still trembling from the aftershocks, on April 15th, 2060, two returned. Right on time. That timing was too precise for many to call it a coincidence. His return had been promised 5 years earlier, and now here he was again, only this time he said even less. Unlike his earlier visit, where he answered some questions, this time he ignored every inquiry. The forum exploded with attempts to understand what he wanted, what was coming next, but all he left behind was a single statement: "I will return on May 17th. Then, silence. For those who had followed his appearances closely, a terrifying pattern was starting to form. It wasn't the date of his appearance that mattered, it was the day before. Because on May 16th, 2016, just one day prior to his promised return, another earthquake hit, this time in Ibaraki Prefecture, not far from Tokyo. Though not as destructive as the previous ones, it was still enough to rattle nerves, damage property, and fuel growing anxiety across the country. Number 3. Time travel technology revealed and strict rules. Let me take you deep into one of the most mysterious and unsettling claims ever shared by someone who says they come from the future. Specifically, the year 2062. This isn't just a sci-fi fantasy or some internet hoax we can easily dismiss. The man who called himself a future human returned with a chilling confession that shook everyone who had been following his story. Unlike before, when he dodged questions and kept things vague, this time he opened up, and what he revealed was far more terrifying than anyone expected. So, if you've ever wondered whether time travel is possible, or what secrets the future may be hiding from us, stay with me, because this part of his story is where everything changes. He claimed that in the future, humanity had not only mastered the ability to move forward through time, but also cracked the impossible, traveling back into the past. That's right, returning to previous eras wasn't just a theory or a dream anymore. He described 2 devices with astonishing detail. The first was called the Vicious 5000, a machine used to propel someone forward in time. The second, even more critical, was the PlusNex 6290, which allowed a person to journey back into the past. But here's where it gets even more intense. These weren't gadgets available to the public. No one could just pick one up and start time-hopping at will. They were tightly controlled by an organization he called the Temporal Management Bureau, an agency built not just to manage the technology, but to protect the entire flow of human history. This bureau, he said, wasn't just a group of scientists or government workers. It functioned almost like a sacred order, strictly enforcing a set of ironclad rules that no time traveler could break. What were those rules? No revealing future events. No tampering with past occurrences. No using future knowledge to get rich or powerful. And perhaps the most terrifying rule of all, if you broke any of these, the consequences weren't just legal, they were existential. The moment a traveler violated these laws, something horrifying would happen. They would be erased, completely deleted from the timeline as if they never existed. Gone. Not just dead, but undone. He described time not as a simple straight line, but more like a living system, something with its own balance and awareness. So when someone creates a disturbance, this system reacts automatically. It corrects itself by removing the problem entirely. Let that sink in for a moment. What kind of force are we dealing with when time itself reacts to protect its integrity? Could this idea suggest that time is more than just a measurement? It's a form of intelligence, a guardian of history. When asked why he never stayed long or gave out the specific answers people begged him for, lottery numbers, political outcomes, disasters to avoid, he finally explained, Time travelers are not allowed to remain in the past beyond a tightly regulated window. Every appearance he made was done under intense surveillance. And the reason he vanished so quickly afterward? It wasn't because he was afraid, it was because he had to. The rules of time are merciless. Now, let me ask you something. If time travel really existed, and you had just a few minutes in the past, what would you do? Would you warn someone you love? Try to change a tragic event? Or would you feel paralyzed, knowing that one misstep could cause your own erasure from existence? These are the kinds of ethical and emotional questions this mysterious story brings to the surface. It challenges our understanding of destiny, free will, and the responsibility that comes with power. If time really could erase you for breaking its rules, what would you risk it all for? Comment below with just one word: love, truth, justice, or nothing. Number 4. Prophecy of World War III and the Final Warning. In one of the most chilling disclosures ever attributed to the enigmatic figure known only as 2062, a man who claims to have traveled back from the future, he gave a rare and deeply unsettling warning about what lies ahead. When pressed on the greatest danger humanity would face in the coming years, he didn't speak in riddles or metaphors. He answered directly and with unmistakable clarity. A third world war would erupt before the year 2030. Yet, what made his prophecy so terrifying wasn't merely the fact that a war was coming. It was the nature of its birth and the path it would take to engulf the world. Unlike the sudden shock of past global conflicts, this one, he warned, would arise from silent, festering tensions, deep-seated rivalries between two unnamed Asian nations, their grievances buried under decades of diplomacy and denial. Over time, these suppressed hostilities would become toxic, quietly fueling resentment until, without warning, they would explode into open warfare. This, he said, would be the spark that sets Asia ablaze, and the flames would not stay contained. As the conflict spreads, nations would be pulled in like dry leaves to a wildfire. The United States, Russia, the Middle East, and much of Europe would be drawn into the chaos, not necessarily out of choice, but by the gravity of alliances, interests, and the sheer unpredictability of a conflict on this scale. What makes this vision even more disturbing is the prediction that the weapons used in this war would not be nuclear, though terrifying in their own right, but chemical. According to the time traveler, it is these substances, designed not just to kill but to spread suffering, that would define the horror of this war. He insisted that their effects would be more devastating than any atomic weapon ever used, because while nuclear arms destroy instantly, chemical weapons linger, deform, poison, and torment. They not only take lives but haunt generations. And Japan, a nation with painful memories of past war and destruction, would once again face the edge of extinction. Cities would collapse, the land would become unrecognizable, and millions would be uprooted, seeking refuge in a world unprepared for such a crisis. The image painted is not just one of war, but of humanity tested to its core. But what can we take from such a grim prophecy? Should we live in fear, or is there another way to respond? From a Buddhist perspective, this kind of warning, true or not, calls us to reflect on the deeper causes of conflict. War does not begin with weapons or borders. It begins in the human heart, with anger, greed, pride, and fear. If we nurture hostility, even in small ways in our everyday lives, we contribute to a world where violence feels normal. If entire nations bury old wounds instead of healing them, they become ticking clocks set to explode in times of crisis. This is why we are called, especially in these uncertain times, to cultivate peace, not just through words, but in how we live. Peace starts at home, with how we treat our family, neighbors, even strangers. It grows when we practice patience, listen more deeply, and see others not as enemies, but as fellow travelers on this fragile earth. The prophecy of 2062 may or may not come true, but it serves as a powerful mirror for our collective choices. The future is never fixed. It is shaped by what we do now. So let us not wait for war to wake us up. Let us begin today, in our small circles, to break the cycle of conflict by planting seeds of compassion and understanding. This is not weakness, it is the greatest strength, and perhaps, by walking this path together, we may yet change the course of history. Number 5. The last two messages of the mysterious person. After a series of chillingly accurate predictions and mysterious disappearances, the figure known only as 2062 left behind two final cryptic messages before vanishing from Japan's online forums for good. These last words, shrouded in mystery yet grounded in unsettling truth, continue to echo in the minds of those who followed his every move. The first message was stark and direct. On July 4th, 2025, a major earthquake will occur off the coast of Japan. This date now looms heavy with anticipation, especially given how closely this warning aligns with an old prophetic manga that eerily predicted similar seismic chaos. The thought that a decades-old piece of fiction might hold real-world insight only adds to the sense of unease. It compels us to question how much of what we dismiss as fantasy might be a distorted mirror reflecting deeper truths. Truths we are often too distracted or skeptical to acknowledge. In the rhythm of modern life, where the urgency of news cycles quickly drowns yesterday's concerns, we often lose sight of subtle warnings that ask us to slow down and look deeper. The second and final message from 2062 was even more ambiguous. In 2024, a major event will occur. Vague, yes, but perhaps intentionally so. Now, standing in the shadow of 2024, we look back and can't help but see patterns that seem to fulfill this cryptic alert. Last year marked a turning point for humanity. The Earth recorded its hottest year in history, a painful reminder of our growing climate crisis. Superstorms tore through communities. Typhoon Yagi devastated parts of Asia, Hurricane Milton battered the United States, and sudden destructive floods overwhelmed entire regions in Afghanistan. These weren't isolated disasters. They were part of a rapidly accelerating chain reaction that reflects the delicate imbalance of our planet's systems. In light of these events, 2062's warning feels less like a prophecy and more like a final plea, one that urges us to pay closer attention not just to predictions, but to the state of the world as it truly is. Whether or not 2062 was from the future becomes less important than the deeper message hidden within his words. These messages, when stripped of their mystery, force us to confront uncomfortable truths about our present. As we navigate through 2025, with fear, hope, and uncertainty interwoven, we're reminded of our shared vulnerability, but we are not powerless. If we can take one thing from this unsettling tale, let it be a wake-up call, not just to prepare for disasters, but to live more consciously, more compassionately, and more connected to one another and the earth. In Buddhism, impermanence is a core teaching. Everything changes and nothing is promised, not even the next day. But with mindfulness and wisdom, we can shape how we respond to change. If the future is uncertain, let us meet it not with fear, but with awareness and collective action. Let these warnings be a mirror, showing us not just what might come, but who we are right now, and how much better we can become. Thank you for watching today's video. It's truly a privilege to have you with us as we explore these deep and mysterious topics together. If this prophecy sparked your curiosity or raised questions in your mind, we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Feel free to share your perspective, or if you're not sure what to say, simply comment, "I'm a seeker," if you're new here, or "I've seen the signs," if you've been following us for a while. Your voice matters, and your presence fuels our journey into the unknown. Let's keep uncovering the mysteries together. Beyond prophecy, the awakening we still have time to choose. Let's pause for a moment, not to dwell on fear, but to reflect on something deeper. After everything we've explored about the mysterious figure known only as 2062, the real question isn't whether he truly came from the future. It's this: what if the warnings were real, and we're the ones not paying attention? Sometimes truth doesn't arrive with fireworks or headlines. Sometimes it whispers. And in a world full of noise, we've grown dangerously good at ignoring the quietest truths. What if this story wasn't just about predicting disasters, but about showing us how blind we've become to the signs all around us? Before we move forward, we must ask ourselves, not "is this real?" but are we awake enough to hear what matters? Number 1. The real question. What if it's all true? Now that we've followed the timeline of the man from 2062, from his cryptic messages and unexplained disappearances to the chilling accuracy of his warnings, it's time to ask the question that lingers quietly beneath the surface. What if it's all true? Not just metaphorically, not just symbolically, but literally. What if, somewhere in the overwhelming rush of daily life, between headlines, distractions, and endless scrolling, someone really did travel through time to warn us? What if those strange, scattered forum posts weren't just the ramblings of an internet hoax, but fragments of something much bigger, something meant to wake us up? Because, at its core, this mystery isn't really about proving time travel. It's not about technology, machines, or futuristic devices. It's about how we as human beings respond to warnings, especially the ones that come in unexpected forms. In today's world, where misinformation spreads faster than wildfire and skepticism is often worn like armor, it's easy, almost automatic, to laugh off prophecies. We scroll past strange claims, we mock what doesn't fit into the logic of the present moment, and we dismiss unusual voices because they don't follow the rules of conventional truth. But what if that very habit is the danger? History has shown us again and again that warnings are often ignored. The signs of collapse, the signals of unrest, the early whispers of catastrophe, they were all there before disasters unfolded. Think of the Titanic's ignored iceberg warnings, the scientists who foresaw the climate crisis decades ago, the political tensions that were brewing long before wars broke out. The tragedy isn't always that something terrible happened, it's that we were told and we didn't listen. Not because we were incapable, but because we were unwilling to believe that reality could break away from our expectations. And perhaps that's the real fear behind stories like the one we're exploring. It's not just the possibility that someone came from the future. It's that we're the kind of people who might ignore them even if they did. We want proof. We want logic. We want comfort. But what if the truth is messy, uncomfortable, and comes without the credentials we expect? What if the real test is not whether the message is perfect, but whether we're open enough to hear it? So as we look back on the path of 2062 and the warnings tied to real-world events, maybe the most important thing we can do now is not to search for evidence, but to search within ourselves. To ask, are we willing to take responsibility for what we choose to believe and what we choose to ignore? Because in a world that is changing faster than we can comprehend, the cost of silence is rising. The future may not wait for us to believe. It may simply arrive. Number 2, a mirror to modern society. Take a moment to look around you, not just at the world outside, but at the way we live, the way we think, and the way we feel. Here in 2025, we're not only wrestling with visible challenges like climate disasters, political unrest, or technological overreach. We're also facing something more invisible and far more dangerous. A slow erosion of meaning. It's a kind of spiritual exhaustion, a silent epidemic of disconnection that numbs our ability to feel deeply or respond wisely. We're overstimulated, yet underfulfilled. We consume more content than ever, yet struggle to find clarity. Our minds are flooded with updates, alerts, and headlines, but how much of it truly reaches our hearts? That's why the strange story of the man from 2062 strikes such a powerful chord. It doesn't just challenge our understanding of time or possibility, it holds up a mirror to our present moment and asks a haunting question. Have we lost the ability to truly listen? Because maybe the real message wasn't about specific dates or disasters, but about our fading sensitivity to warnings that don't arrive with flashing lights and viral attention. Today, subtle truths struggle to survive. The whispers of wisdom are drowned out by the noise of convenience and distraction. We crave answers but resist silence. We seek control but ignore reflection. We've become so obsessed with productivity and instant gratification that we no longer know how to pause and sense the quiet signals the world offers us. Prophecies like the ones from 2062 may seem fantastical, but their purpose is not necessarily to predict, they're here to provoke. They don't just tell us what might happen, they show us what we've already become. They reflect the cracks forming beneath the surface of a civilization that's moving faster than its soul can follow. When someone says, "Run to the mountains," it's not just a warning about a physical disaster. It could be a metaphor for stepping away from the chaos, rising above the noise and reconnecting with what's real. But the question remains, in this age of overstimulation, would we even hear it? Or would it be buried beneath social media algorithms and breaking news? This isn't just about prophecy anymore, it's about perception. And perhaps the greatest danger we face is not what lies ahead, but our growing inability to sense when something important is trying to reach us. Because the truth is, the most life-changing warnings rarely shout, they whisper, and unless we slow down, become present, and reconnect with deeper awareness, we may never notice them until it's too late. Number 3. From entertainment to responsibility. It's easy to dismiss stories like the one of the man from 2062 as entertainment, another viral mystery, a speculative tale meant to amuse, scare, or distract us for a while before we scroll to the next thing. In fact, that's exactly what most people do. We treat prophecy, science fiction, and unexplained events as categories of fantasy tucked safely away from our real lives. But what if these stories are not just meant to entertain us, but to test us? What if they are not designed to thrill our curiosity, but to measure our ability to respond wisely to uncomfortable truths hidden in plain sight? These narratives push us to confront the unimaginable, to consider scenarios that force us to reflect on how prepared or unprepared we really are for crisis, change, and consequence. Even when wrapped in fiction, there is a strange, undeniable power in these stories. Take the manga that eerily mirrored the prediction of a massive earthquake years before it actually struck Japan. Was it just coincidence? Or was it, as Carl Jung suggested through his theory of the collective unconscious, a reflection of a deeper truth that lies buried beneath our individual awareness? Jung believed that human beings across cultures and generations are connected through shared symbols, instincts, and archetypes. Through art, through dreams, and yes, even through fiction, these hidden truths find their way to the surface long before our conscious minds are ready to face them. So, whether 2062 was a real man, a symbolic messenger, or the personification of our future regrets, the message remains the same. We are not paying attention. And that warning should unsettle us more than any earthquake or apocalyptic prediction, because the greatest risk to our future may not be an external event. It may be our internal refusal to take things seriously until they become unavoidable. In a society that often chooses speed over reflection and entertainment over responsibility, we risk becoming numb to the very signals that are meant to guide us. Think about how we react to today's crises: climate change, social fragmentation, mental health collapse. We know these problems exist. We hear the warnings, we see the signs, and yet we hesitate, we debate, we delay. Why? Because action requires responsibility, and responsibility means sacrifice, attention, and change. It's easier to treat these signs as passing headlines than as personal calls to transformation. If we continue to walk this path, distracted by devices, divided by ideology, and dismissive of inconvenient truths, we may find ourselves blind to the very moment when those stories become reality. And when that happens, it won't matter whether the warning came from a man in 2062, a prophetic manga, or a voice inside your own conscience. What will matter is whether you were listening, and whether you chose to act. If you've made it this far, you're already awakening to a deeper truth that many still overlook. Comment below with "Awakening Journey" to affirm your choice to walk a more mindful and conscious path. Don't go anywhere. There's still powerful insight ahead that could shift your perspective and guide you toward lasting inner peace. Stay until the end. This awakening is still yours to choose. Number 4. What we still have power over. Let's be clear, this isn't a story meant to paralyze us with fear. In fact, it's the opposite. It's a call to remember that we are not powerless in the face of uncertainty. Yes, the tale of the man from 2062 and the eerie accuracy of his warnings may stir unease, but it also shines a spotlight on the one truth we often forget. The future isn't something we're just heading toward. It's something we're shaping, moment by moment, with every choice we make. Even in the shadow of ominous predictions, we still have the ability to influence outcomes. That power doesn't come from advanced technology or secret knowledge. It comes from awareness, from intentional living, from choosing to care, even when it would be easier to look away. In Buddhist wisdom, it's said that awareness is the path to immortality. This doesn't suggest we'll live forever in a physical sense, but rather that the energy of our actions, our compassion, our mindfulness, our courage, can live on and ripple outward long after we're gone. Every single decision we make, how we speak to a stranger, how we treat the planet, how we raise our children or respond to those who disagree with us, has the potential to shape not just our personal future, but the collective one. The question is, are we aware of that responsibility? We don't need to be time travelers to alter the course of what's ahead. We only need to be present, fully, sincerely, and urgently present in this moment. Because the warnings are already here. Nature is speaking, sometimes gently, sometimes with catastrophic force. Are we listening when the oceans rise and the forests burn? Are we paying attention when mental health crises escalate or when division and anger dominate our discourse? These are not just trends, they're signals. And how we respond today determines whether we spiral into deeper crisis or rise with wisdom and unity. Ask yourself, are we preparing our children to live in the world we're leaving them? Are we teaching them how to think critically, feel deeply, and act with empathy? Or are we handing them a future full of chaos and complexity, with no guidance on how to navigate it? The answers to these questions don't require massive revolutions. They require small, consistent acts of clarity and compassion. They require us to wake up. Because the truth is, the most powerful tools we have are not in some futuristic device or secret prophecy. They are already within us. Awareness, accountability, and the willingness to care deeply about things that don't offer instant gratification. And if we can live from that space, then maybe, just maybe, we don't need a warning from the future to change our path. We only need the courage to change now. Number 5. Final reflection. Choose awakening over apathy. So, where does this strange and haunting story ultimately leave us? For many, it would be easy to simply nod, think, well, that was interesting, and then scroll on, another curious tale swallowed by the endless feed of daily content. But if we're being honest with ourselves, we know that something about this story lingers. Not because of the mystery surrounding the man from 2062, but because it resonates with a deeper truth we already feel but rarely say out loud. The world is changing, and it's happening faster than we can process. You don't need a time traveler to tell you that natural disasters are more violent, that division between people is growing, that trust is eroding, and that the connection between humanity and something sacred, whether it be nature, wisdom, or shared purpose, is quietly unraveling. The true weight of this tale isn't found in whether you believe he was real. It's found in what it reflects back at us, our reluctance to respond, our habit of dismissing the uncomfortable, and our tendency to delay action until it's too late. The most terrifying prophecy isn't the one that speaks of war or earthquakes or systems collapsing. It's the one that reveals our failure to act on what we already know to be true. Because we do know. We feel it. In our bones, in our dreams, in the silence we avoid. And yet we continue as if awareness alone is enough. The real choice we face isn't about accepting or rejecting the story of 2062. The real choice is whether we will stay asleep in distraction, apathy, and denial, or whether we will wake up, pay attention, and begin to live as if our decisions matter. Because they do, more than we realize. In every interaction, in every choice to show kindness instead of judgment, in every moment where we pause to reflect instead of react, we plant a seed for the kind of future we want to inherit. Let this story be more than a mystery. Let it be a mirror that asks, are you awake? Are you listening to what life is trying to tell you? Through chaos, through nature, through discomfort, are you willing to feel the urgency of this moment? Not with panic, but with presence. Because in the end, the only prophecy that matters is the one we write with our actions. And the future, our future, is still being shaped by what we choose to do today. Let us not be the generation that looked at the warning signs and walked away. Let us be the ones who opened our eyes, leaned in, and chose awakening over apathy. We may never know for certain who the man from 2062 really was, or whether he truly came from the future. But what matters more is the message behind the mystery, that we must learn to listen before it's too late. In a world overwhelmed by distraction, perhaps the most powerful warnings aren't the loudest, but the ones that quietly ask us to pay attention, to reflect and to act with care. Whether or not these prophecies come true, the deeper truth remains. Our choices, our awareness, and our compassion shape the future more than any prediction ever could. So let's not wait for disaster to awaken us. Let us be present, let us be mindful, and let us walk together, not in fear, but in wisdom. If this video stirred something in you, if it opened your eyes or made you pause to think, please support the journey of wisdom by liking this video, sharing it with others, and subscribing to the channel. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you won't miss what we explore next. Until then, stay curious, stay awake, and may your journey always lead you closer to truth.